My dear friends and supporters of the Thomas International Center, well, first of all, Happy New Year. This is an end of the year message, and I'm sorry it's been a long time since I addressed you last time, at least all of you in a video or in a conference or in a ball, an end of the year ball, as we used to have in Raleigh, North Carolina. But as you know, the pandemics stopped our activities for a while. We had to freeze even our online websites because it was too expensive. And honestly, when the pandemic began and it was clear that too many people were undergoing problems, even financial problems, and fear and uncertainties about the future, I and some of our collaborators thought that it was better to just let families and people focus on other things for a little while, and maybe going back to our donation campaign after these tough times would end. And I thought it was a good choice, but of course the hope is to get back on our feet as soon as possible. And as you know, I wasn't able to travel. Of course, I've been in touch with many of you and personally, but I couldn't travel. I couldn't promote our activities. I couldn't do anything in Raleigh. I was in Palermo when the first restrictions were enforced by governments, and in Italy we had very serious restrictions immediately. If you remember, Italy was the first country in the world in which we had the first wave, so-called, of the pandemic, so it was pretty intense. And so I was stuck here. I haven't been traveling for more than 2 years at this point. Which is very unusual for me. It's really awkward. I'm missing a lot coming to the United States, which is my second home somehow. And but again, I mean, I think it was, and of course myself. I mean, with my family, we had some financial issues. I had to. I usually worked for the Thomas International Center with just minimum, well, it's calling it a salary is too much. I mean, some reimbursements and basic expenses to covered by you, our supporters. But in these times, I had to work more in Italy with my firm as an attorney, to support my family and to be sure that whatever happens with the pandemics, I mean, we would be not in trouble. And this too was a good, prudent choice to make. But again, our hopes and our prayers were always in that direction, the direction of getting back on our feet, and also praying that none of our friends and supporters would suffer any serious consequences from the coronavirus and the pandemics. And hopefully I don't know of any bad news from you, so we have been blessed from this viewpoint. And for those of you who knew about that, our good friend Cardinal Burke recovered, and he's now in Rome. We've been praying for him too. He has been our guest in Raleigh, and he has always been a good friend of ours. I'm gonna see him in a few days in Rome, and to show him support and friendship and prayer. And so our online activities has been very limited to our social networks. Sometimes I've been posting some news and updates. Not much, I mean, because we froze our activities for the time being. But again, the hope is that one. We will get back on our feet as soon as the pandemic is over, and as soon as you all give us good messages about you being healthy and well, and encouraging and supporting. But we're not there yet. Now we are just at the end of the year, and I have just a few pieces of news to share with you. One is that I haven't had time to even update our YouTube channel. Usually, I had never done it. Usually, some of our collaborators did it for us. And so I'm gonna post this video just to let you know that we're still here, and that what I've been doing in the last few weeks is to update with some of our videos and activities my YouTube channel, which I've been updating also for talking about the pandemics and the coronavirus, mostly in Italy. But I created some playlists with the Thomas International videos. So I hope that you will you'll follow my channel for the time being, and you will find it easily if you go on YouTube and just digit my name and last name. You will find this channel. So please subscribe, and you will find updates about me and about the Thomas International Center's videos. It's too honestly, I don't have much time, so otherwise I would try to update this channel too. But as soon as we will restart our own activities with some collaborators available, we will definitely promote again our own channels. I've been updating some of our Facebook and LinkedIn pages too, but again, not much, but enough to be still there, present. And so on this YouTube channel, I have posted a few links to some books, and I want to update you about these books as well, because these are books that if you buy them, they will support the revenues, whatever they are, honestly. They would support our current effort to recreate our own websites and to support our temporary office. I moved some of our stuff where I am right now to try to reorganize our things. So I'm gonna spend some money, especially in the next few months, to try to rearrange activities from here until I'll be able to travel again to the US. But these books, through an agreement with the publisher, they would support our, at least in the case of my revenues for sure, but the publishers will help too. Especially the publisher of 3 of these books, they would support the Thomas International activities. So if you buy these books, I'm going to tell you about these books soon enough. This would be a very little thing, a very little support that you can show to the center for the time being. One is The Imitation of Christ. We republished a very classical edition of The Imitation of Christ. And if you buy that edition, because there are several editions available, you will definitely support us. You will find again the link in the Thomas International YouTube channel on the top right. You will see that there is an Amazon icon that you can click, and you will find this edition of the Imitation of Christ. Besides, this is a great time of the year to read something, right? So it's a great book. It's one of the 3, probably 4 most important classical books on Christian spirituality. So why not? Buy it, give it to some of your friends, and you will read a great book, make your friends and relatives read it, and support our activities at the same time. Another 3 books are actually my books. One is Ancient Wisdom and Thomistic Wit. Again, you will find it on Amazon. Well, in the case of my books, you can, independently from the links I posted on the YouTube channel, this one, not mine, maybe mine too, I'm not sure, but definitely the Thomas International Center YouTube channel has these links on the top right. But if you go on Amazon.com and you just digit my name and last name, you'll see all my books available, at least on Amazon. And and if you buy these three in particular, you will support the Thomas interaction activities. One is, again, Thomas, Ancient Wisdom and Thomistic Wit, which is a good, easygoing general introduction to ethical theory, moral philosophy, but written in a way that is supposed to be pleasant. And usually the response I had from readers is that it was, from this viewpoint at least, it was successful. So my aim was to write a book that people would read almost as if it were a novel and find it pleasant, but at the same time learning some very key, crucial concepts in ethical theory. So that was my idea, and all the more reason I'm recommending you this book also for your friends. So I think it's a great gift to especially young people, even high school teenagers would benefit from a book like this. So it's from all ages, of course, not below 12, I would say, but definitely from 14 years old on or up. That would be that's a good book I would recommend. Even from senior is a book that tries to put together ancient wisdom with some with the plastic. I use also contemporary good fiction and movies that would make it more pleasant for our current minds, which are so focused on movies and television. It's unprecedented in history. Then another book is this one that has just came out, and I got the copies just a few days ago. Is a book entitled From Aristotle to Thomas Aquinas, and it's a book that can be read at several different levels. One is very technical, so I wouldn't recommend you some of the chapters because they would be very technical, but other chapters, and it's a book that can be read chapter by chapter. You can just select the ones you prefer, and you would find, and you can just read them independently from the rest of the book. Of course, if you read all of them from the viewpoint of the book, is better, but it doesn't mean that you cannot read just one of the chapters. And there are some chapters which are, I think, of course, I'm the author, so I'm biased, but from my viewpoint, as much as you can trust this viewpoint, there are some chapters which are great introductions to some key concepts. For example, one of the chapters is my best introduction so far, general introduction to natural law theory, both from a theological viewpoint and philosophical viewpoint. It's the chapter entitled, let me check the title exactly, Natural Law as Inclination to God. So there are two chapters on more focused on political personalism and political theory, which are the chapters on friendship or equality and natural law democracy and the crisis of authority, which again I would recommend to any person who has some inclination to read some moral and political theory essays, but they don't require necessarily technical background. So, and also there is a chapter on the concept of person that I would definitely recommend. This is a chapter that may be a little bit more technical than others, but I would still recommend to anyone to read it. And one on sexual ethics, actually, in which I, while criticizing some views that I don't consider well grounded in classical tradition, I take advantage of this criticism to explain some very crucial, I think, traditional teaching on contraception and marriage, especially. So again, these chapters I think would be very profitable for any good reader by good reader I mean readers who try usually to read at least some more cultural texts in ethical and political theory, can be read by anyone, even without a scholarly background. Some other chapters I wouldn't recommend to anyone, especially the first two, to anyone who doesn't have a strong philosophical, a strong background in at least in metaphysics and moral philosophy. And then the third book I added to the links on this YouTube channel, and which revenues would support what we are trying to recover from the center, is actually a book I just published on the ethics of the COVID vaccines. Well, I have the Italian version here, but the English version, you will recognize it on Amazon, because it does have the same geographical map, but the color of the cover is different. So this book is entitled The Death of the Frontimus, Faith and Truth of Anti-COVID Vaccine. And the Frontimus is a very difficult term. It comes from Greek. Frontimus is the term that in Aristotle's Ethics indicates the prudent person, the wise person, the person who possesses practical wisdom. And so the book is about the death of the Frontimus, the death of the wise person, because I think that in the contemporary debate on the vaccines, the anti-COVID vaccines, which again are not properly speaking vaccines, as many of you may know. The very use of the term vaccine is problematic, and I talk about this in another book that is upcoming in January, but I'll tell you better about this in just at the end of this video. But so, from my viewpoint, and this is the main reason why I wrote this book, is that apparently something really weird happened through these vaccines. First of all, that people are fighting, that many friendships have been broken, and I personally was surprised that I have very good friends and relatives who don't want to talk to me just because I'm a scholar and I'm an expert in epistemology and ethics, and of course I check, as any good lawyer would do, I check the sources, and I listen to the expert opinions, even from both sides of any debate, right? So by checking the sources, I discovered a huge difference between what the official sources would say about these vaccines and what the mainstream media and politicians would say about this. So there are different truths about these vaccines, and apparently many people began to fight with one another, and they seem to be more willing to trust people who shouldn't be trusted, generally speaking. So Aristotle's theory, ethical theory, assumes that at the point of choosing what to do with our lives, choosing ethically, our rule, the main rule of our action, is the wise person, a person we know because of his or her virtues. In Christian ethics, our rule is Jesus Christ. We want to know what to do. We look at Jesus Christ. We don't look at somebody who maybe is a big promoter of abortion, because a person who is a big promoter of abortion is not a wise person, is not prudent, is not Jesus Christ, right? So if we trust anybody about something really crucial like the vaccines, when there are other people, even in our circles of friends, who are usually trustworthy, and they tell a different story, there is something really weird going on there from the viewpoint of ethical theory, both classical and Christian. Because usually, at least at first glance, until proven differently, we should give some credits to wise people, prudent people, the Frontimus. So in this book I try to, in a sense, to transform us as readers of this book in judges in a court trial, in which, using legal science, we need to evaluate how reliable are people who tell us things about these vaccines, because clearly we don't have access to the ultimate truth of these vaccines. Nobody does. I mean, it's mostly secret. I mean, it's a secret, trade secret from the pharmaceutical company. Only FDA in the US has access to the real data. Anything about these vaccines is told to us by some people, some institutions. So, but what is their reliability in an ideal trial, as a thought experiment? What would be our criteria to judge their relationship with the real sources and how reliable they are, even ethically? So I try to evaluate this, and I consider one of the witnesses science, the way it's been talked about in the debate. So I try to figure out what science actually means in this area of human discussion right now in the mainstream media. And again, I claim to be an expert in epistemology, so I'm supposed to be able to understand what the difference is between a virologist speaking, an ethicist, a lawyer, an epidemiologist, whoever. I mean, this understanding the different truths that these people can tell us belongs to epistemology. So this book is about epistemology and ethics. This is not a book in which I try to convince anybody that people who are anti-vaxxers or pro-vaxxers are right or wrong. This is not the point. My point is to make people think about the real information they have, and people who can trust, and how much and for what reasons. Because my main concern in this entire debate about vaccines is for people to be well informed so they can make their own informed decision about these vaccines and about the pandemics in general, about lockdowns and early therapies, whatever, early treatments, whatever. I have another book coming, which is entitled, in January, which is entitled Vaccination as an Act of Love, the Epistemology of Ethical Choice in Times of Pandemics, in which I give the entire structure of how to rationalize our ethical choice about the vaccines. And again, my point is not to be a fanatic of pro or against or anti, right? My point is to be sure that we understand what ethical choice is in this case and what information we have to make an informed decision. I'm telling you this because I don't want you to misunderstand my current focus on, because I've been focusing on my ethical and epistemological research on these anti-COVID vaccines, because honestly I've never seen a situation in which politics and mainstream media and even religion kind of allied with one another, had an international agreement to tell exactly the same story, which is already generating serious challenges to our democratic system. And in Italy we know something about it for sure, as you probably know. And I have several friends who are really suffering for this kind of government's attitude. And this, again, is independent to a certain extent from the merits of the vaccines as such. It's a democratic issue, it's a basic rights, human rights and liberties issue. So of course, I recommend you to read my books and even on anti-COVID vaccines, and to make your own opinion about it. But to the extent that this might help the Thomas International Center, for sure, I think I would use the revenues for supporting our current effort to re-establish the usual activities of the center all around the world, and then of course as soon as possible in the US as well. I don't think I'm forgetting anything about this end of the year message. Again, don't forget that if you want to, and by the way, about the vaccines, I also posted some videos in Italian on YouTube, but I plan on doing something similar in English, in which I comment upon some technical issues that I touch upon in my books, but in a more easygoing way on YouTube. I'm going to do that in English too. It's just the time is a precious thing. Unfortunately, we all don't have much in this moment of the year, with all these restrictions and other limitations and extra even family things to take care of. It's really tough. I don't want to get into details. Too many things are popping up in my mind, so I'm sorry. I didn't want to talk about this. I talk about some of these things in the introduction of my next book, but this is enough for this video. And again, it's not a video I prepared very well, so it's just me talking to good old friends and supporters and telling them that we're still here, and we hope to be back with you with our usual activities as soon as possible. Just don't stop praying for us, supporting us with prayers at least, and as soon as possible, maybe as soon as you can, we'll ask you for some support to go back on our ordinary activities as well. And for now, my best wishes for a holy time of Christmas and a new year full of new energy and hope. Bye.